Okay, y'all, so Pastor Gray addressed the Lamborghini rumors, and I'm getting ready to explain to y'all why I had my stance first and then get into what he had to say. Enjoy the video, like, comment, and subscribe. What's up, y'all? It's KingBritneyChanel. You already know. So remember I did the video about a pastor buying his wife a $200K car. Well, the same pastor, y'all, a lot of people's concern was, this pastor, he used the church funds to, buy this car, woo, 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 They was, popping off and all of this other stuff. And I just want to say this, because I don't know this man, but I just want to really just tell people, righteous judgment is everything when you judging situations and you looking at situations. You can't just always jump to conclusions. And never try to condemn people. Just always try to come from like a loving situation or like a righteous judgment situation. Now remember, I told y'all in the video, I said, listen, I don't mind somebody buying extravagant stuff for themselves if they paid for it with their own hard-earned money. They worked for that. That's their money. But I just did not, I don't approve of pastors putting a church in the middle of the hood and the people can't afford to pay their light bill, can't eat, baby starving, and you taking the money from the constituents and the patrons of the church to get rich. Now, I said also in that video, that's why I was careful to say, I don't know this person's situation. Now, I said I'm going to just only time is going to tell. A lot of people, it's like you got to be careful because we live in a day and age, it is a lot of foul people. But you have to judge situations. You can't judge people for other people's what they did. Because you pastors is, that you've seen is, they've done this before. You got to judge people according to what they do. Okay? I can't say, because that person is robbing houses, then that means everybody is robbing houses. You have to just break it down. And I want a lot of people to also know, because I be seeing in my comments, not even on this video, because I do a lot of pastors going wild videos, and I talk a lot about ministry and that sort of stuff. Excuse me, because, one second, y'all. Excuse me, it's kind of cold and I got a little bit of a cold. But I talk a lot about ministry, and that's because I was raised up in the church. So a lot of the stuff I be talking about, it's like I can understand where certain people is coming from with the outrage, and I'm gonna make a video on why I actually left the church. But I be seeing under my comments though, it be people in the comments, they'll say stuff, they so quick to bust out false prophet. They so quick to use that terminology. And let me tell you something, the same way Miriam and Aaron got themselves into trouble in the Bible, you have to be careful of that. You cannot just say, because you don't like this, or you don't like that, or you wouldn't have did something like this, that the person is a false prophet. Now, here's an example of how you can identify somebody as a false prophet or not. If you looking at their life and certain stuff that they do is not lining up with the word of God, not because you just don't like it, but it's just it's not lining up with the word of God. So, prime example, it was a pastor and he was on a deposition, and it was a lawyer in the deposition. They was asking him, so you needed Louis Vuitton, so the members is paying for your Louis Vuitton, and you turning limos or Benzes into limos, and you saying it's for the ministry. You know that person is using ministry money for, extravagant lifestyle, and the people that's coming to their ministry cannot pay their bills. So certain stuff like that, or, this person predicted the Super Bowl, something that was so vain. Why would God tell you to put out a betting prediction on the Super Bowl? So that when you look at stuff like that, that's how you can tell if it's a false prophet. Not that Okay, so before I was rudely cut off, I want to start teaching about the poverty, or having a poverty or a fixed mindset. It's a mindset that I've noticed in certain types of communities people have, and they don't see, it's like they're every day, they don't see successful people who that's the norm for them. Like, everybody is not in struggle. Everybody does not grow up in lack. So people tend to associate struggle sometimes with blackness, or people tend to associate struggle with, oh, that's something that has to happen in life. Poverty is a curse, okay? You should not profess poverty over your life, because words are very powerful. Like, a lot of people always profess that they're broke, and then surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly enough, you see them and they're broke all the time. So God teaches us, in his word, ways to combat these word curses, number one. And number two, it's like Jesus already died. So we've already, he overcame all of that for us. But it's like people don't understand that generational curses and word curses and that sort of stuff is real in their family line. Because Jesus died, but the devil is still using different curses and covenants and agreements that your ancestors made after the fact. Because people be like, oh, I'm waiting on God to bless me. He already professed. He's already done it. So you should not be dealing with certain stuff in your life. Now, even though you deal with trials and tribulations in your life, that's not supposed to be your testimony your whole life. That's not something that you're supposed to profess. Like, if God moved you out of a situation, you're supposed to leave an inheritance for your children and your children's children, and you're supposed to live your best life eventually, okay? When you start to overcome, you are more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus that strengthens you. Now, a lot of people, I just want y'all to keep that in mind, that please do with that false prophet stuff and you putting your mouth on people and all of that other stuff. I don't know this man, so I didn't really go to really put my mouth on this man or whatever he's doing, because whether we like it or not, I don't know this man, and I don't know enough about him to really, make a righteous judgment. I just was like, I'm waiting for the facts of the situation as far as this car situation, because I don't approve of people, pastors, using the church funds and pimping the people. Now, however, I do know that it's not like, I don't think it's weird for people to go and buy what they want to buy if they work hard for that. Like, you're not supposed to be broke, busted, and disgusted. Poverty and lack, that's not your testimony once you're a child of God. But, you have people that be like, oh, I'm just keep on keeping on, and all that other little philosophy that they teach you and all of that. Like, it's just one big struggle. It's one big victimhood. When God already said who you was. He already said what the inheritance was for his children. Now, Pastor Gray, y'all, did respond to this situation about the Lamborghini. So I felt like it was some parts I wanted y'all to hear. And I liked what he said. So let's start.
What I want to talk about here is my 8-year wedding anniversary. I never saw a good marriage growing up. None of the men in my family have done right by their wives, except my Uncle Al, who's married to my Aunt Sherry. But the men that were born in my family, my father, my uncle, my mother's brothers, they've never done marriage successfully. And one of the things that I was always afraid of is that I wouldn't have what it took to be a good husband, to be a good father, because I never saw that. My mother's dad, Emmett Hill Sr., was a preacher. And they had 5 children, my mom and my aunt and her 3 brothers. And then he walked away. So you can be saved and preaching and walk away from your family. My grandmother got remarried, had 3 more kids, and he walked away. So my grandmother, who loves God, was left with 8 kids, 2 ex-husbands. None of them gave her $1 really towards the raising of their children. I grew up with those stories. I grew up seeing physical abuse, domestic violence. I saw my aunt's boyfriend, my oldest aunt, her boyfriend threatened her with a knife, and I was looking through the screen door And then he turns to me and he runs at me with the knife, and I take off running, probably as fast as I've ever run, you know, because he was high on drugs or whatever. But I remember thinking about what I've seen, and I swore to God I'd never perpetuate that. I'd always be more. You know, my life.
So right there, he's letting us know right there that sometimes when we go without something, like, let's say, for example, if you went without a father and you're a male, you know, some males tend to overcompensate by, you know, deciding like, okay, I didn't have a dad, so let me be the best dad that I could possibly be. Like, my children will never go without whatever, and I'll be at every game or every PTA meeting and that sort of stuff. Some people go over the top, you know what I mean? So he's already letting you know there, like, he's never seen a positive marriage, but aside from a few people in his family, he's basically saying none of the men have ever done right by their wives. And so that instilled in him values to say, okay, that will not be me or my testimony. That's deep right there.
If I've had dreams, everybody should have dreams, things that they fight for. See, because here's what I know. Life is not promised. You can be here today and be gone tonight.
That's the truth, honey.
The reason why my wife and I wanted to have an 8-year wedding celebration is because I needed a new beginning. 8 is the number of new beginnings. In the Hebrew, it's a significant word. It is a constant reminder of what God completed and what God will begin again. Every 8th day is a reminder of the promises of God, the newness of God. It literally signifies plumpness or fruitfulness. And when you were circumcised on the 8th day. The 8th is always a significant number to the people of God. I didn't know what I didn't know about marriage until I got in it. And there was this thing on Sister Circle where I was talking about my wife had more pain birthing me than our children. And people took what was metaphorical and made it literal and misconstrued it. My point was, my wife has pushed for my dreams and my vision, and she has toiled with a man who was still trying to find himself. And that carries a weight. And I wanted to honor her for how she has walked with me. I've covered her. She's covered me. But the truth is, I have a pure heart. My heart is pure. But everybody doesn't have a pure heart, and they don't care anyway, because there are some people who are committed to misunderstanding you. There are people who don't like you. They've never liked you.
Preach.
They just want a reason to say it. Some people are insecure. Others are jealous. Others feel that they're right. But then there are other people that just don't like you because they got devils. And that's a real thing.
Preach. He ain't never lied about that, honey. It don't matter how many times you break something down in layman's terms or plain as day. They will always try to find a reason, honey, to hate or to say something about you or to lay false charges on you, honey. Devils do that. So they always want to twist your words, knowing daggone well that's not what you said, or you broke it down to the simplest. Even a child could understand some of the stuff you say, and they still find a way because they don't like you. That's really what the truth is. Preach, Pastor. Let them know.
But I wanted to talk to y'all because this is my heart. I want y'all to hear me. There's a lot of stories going around about a gift that I gave my wife.
Listen, y'all, listen.
You know, and I want to talk about it for a second because it matters. And there's a couple things that matter. Because the stories that I hear, and I've tried to not listen to it, but one of them is pastor buys his wife, this expensive car. First of all, it wasn't a pastor that bought the car. It was a husband that bought the car.
Preach.
Get that in your spirit. I'm a husband first. Don't confuse what I do with who I am.
Exactly. A lot of people get that so confused, honey. Your first ministry, honey, is number one, God, and then your family. A lot of these pastors and people get it confused. Like your title is just the only like, they let your title just engulf who you are and what your divine duty is. You know what I mean? It's sometimes, you know, it's hard. Like, prime example, you know, a lot of people, they talk about career, like, oh, I want to be a model, I want to be this, I want to be that. I see a lot of women say, you know, oh, I'm this, and that. But when you look at what's going on at their home, they not taking care of their kids. Your first ministry is your home, girl. Get it together. But I like how he said that.
What I do is I pastor God's people. Who I am as a husband and a father. And I'll do anything to honor them.
Preach.
And I won't ask permission from anybody to do it. No man should. I learned this from Reverend Reginald Lyons, his wife Cynthia in Cincinnati.
Hold on, I want to run that back. That was powerful.
A couple things that matter. Because the stories that I hear, and I've tried to not listen to it, but one of them is pastor buys his wife, you know, this expensive car. First of all, it wasn't a pastor that bought the car. It was a husband that bought the car. Get that in your spirit.
Get it in your spirit.
I'm a husband first. Don't confuse what I do with who I am. What I do is I pastor God's people. Who I am as a husband and a father. And I'll do anything to honor them. And I won't ask permission from anybody to do it. No man should. I learned this from Reverend Reginald Lyons, his wife Cynthia in Cincinnati, my homeboy Andre Lyons, Corey and Dante. When I was growing up, he was one of the foremost examples of what a husband should be. He bought his wife the best car, you know, I forget what kind of Cadillac. It was just so fly. And he had kind of like another car or something. But whatever it was, the wife always drove better than the husband. You feel me? And her car would go in the driveway first, and then he parked behind her. And I don't know why that made me cry. I was young, but it made me cry because it meant that he was covering. He was protecting his wife. He was like, babe, you go in first. I got you. You know, and I've the men that I saw growing up, their wives always had a nice car they drove. If they worked hard, the wife drove well. The husband would drive the truck. The wife would drive the sedan. You feel me? And so I say that to say, in my life, I never saw a man do right by his wife. My father didn't do right by my mom. Okay, my uncles didn't do right by theirs. My cousins who've been married, their husbands didn't do right by them. So I feel the weight of an entire family on me. So when I think about what my wife has sacrificed for me, she gave me 2 kids. She's gone through a thyroidectomy.
My God.
They had precancerous cells on there. People don't know what we've gone through. So it's nothing to me to bless her. What should concern people who are actually genuinely concerned is, did this man use any money from the church to do this? And the answer is no, absolutely not. And God,
hold on, let me run it back so y'all can hear it one more time, honey. Let me run it back.
To say, in my life, I never saw a man do right by his wife. My father didn't do right by my mom. Okay, my uncles didn't do right by theirs. My cousins who've been married, their husbands didn't do right by them. So I feel the weight of an entire family on me. So when I think about what my wife has sacrificed for me, she gave me 2 kids. She's gone through a thyroidectomy. They had precancerous cells on there. People don't know what we've gone through. So it's nothing to me to bless her. What should concern people who are actually genuinely concerned,
the real one,
is, did this man use any money from the church to do this? And the answer is no, absolutely not. And God, take my life on this live feed if I did. For those who don't know, me and my wife have a show on the Oprah Winfrey Network. We're working on season 4 right now. Shh, don't tell anybody. That's 4 seasons, okay? And I'm not an actor on it. I'm a producer of it. Get that straight.
He said, get it straight, honey. He on the OWN network. He on the Oprah Winfrey Network. Oprah throwing out them big checks. Now, whether or not, you know, you agree with him being on the own network, that's him and God. You know what I mean? You can't stop nobody from doing them. But my only concern, like I said, you know, righteously was the money coming from the people in the church? He said the answer was no, and I kind of believe, because I've seen him on TV before. And so those people that are on TV, I just seen Star from the Star Report. He put how much he was getting from being on Complex. So those people are getting them $1,000 checks like that to be able to afford that. And I know a lot of people don't really understand that, because a lot of people probably, you know, the average person who work a regular job, they probably are not used to those type of checks or that sort of thing. So they think a person have to scam to get it. I remember, like, when this whole Kanika situation was going on, pretty much it was like Chosen was harboring on the fact that, what's her name, Teresa, the girl mother, had a Benz. I'm like, Benzes are not even expensive. So it's like I said, growth mindset. A person with a fixed mindset will say, oh, I'm broke, I could never afford that, or I can't afford this, or they would say, I'm broke, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. A person with a growth mindset or without a poverty mindset will be like, how can I afford this? Let me find a way to afford this. You know, if it's something that I want, let me save for it. Let me do this. It's a lot of people, and you know, a lot of us, because a lot of people condemn people for even what type of job they have. You know, a lot of people will sit here and say, oh, he on the Oprah Winfrey Network. But if you think about it, a lot of us don't work at jobs that are Christian friendly if you're a Christian. You know, a lot of these people, they're not Christians when you go for employment. So, you know, I've seen a bunch of comments. I'm going to let them go on a little bit longer, and then I'm going to just put the link to the video down below.
Oh, by the way, I just signed my second book deal. Win From Within is out now. Go buy it. But the book deal comes with resources. The TV show comes with resources. I also have other streams, and I've also been wise with my savings and investments. I'm not going into details, but the point is this. I have created and been patient my whole life for this moment. I'm 45. I'm supposed to wait till I'm 70 to live my best life. And my best life is seeing my wife happy. It's not like I'm sitting up trying to do something for me. I want my wife to be happy. And every man should be able to do whatever is in his ability to do. Nobody knows how long it took me to work, to save, to invest. I walked through making sure that my credit was right, because all of those things matter. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I want people to hear me. I'm tired of all of these people talking all of this stuff, and you're a prosperity preacher. I don't believe in it. I don't think everybody's going to be a millionaire. I don't think everybody's going to be a billionaire. I do pray that everybody is debt-free. I pray that.
Well, a lot of people ain't going to be a millionaire because of certain situations, like I said, mindset and that sort of thing. But I'm going to stop it right there. I'm just going to close out with this. You know, I like what he said. He said a lot of people, they look at what you have right now, but they didn't see the process. Well, some people, you know, if they're close to you. But a lot of people, they hate on what you have now. But if you notice, they would not be willing to go through your same process. And I know from what I've learned coming up, you know, I never looked at somebody else and what they had like, oh, I couldn't have that. I'm going to be like, I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do investments. But it's just like these values was instilled in me early. Like my mom was like, buy property. Start your own business. Do this, do that. But the mindset of the average person, especially from the community that we come from, they don't see that. They don't teach their kids inheritance. They don't teach their kids that. And then they look at people that is going to get that and they think you have to con to get it. They don't understand how money works. They don't understand how credit works. They don't understand how none of that works. But then they looking at you like, oh, you got to be conning to get it. You don't have to con to get that. Man, I done seen people people actually be going to put down payments on cars. It's crazy. Or they put down payments on houses. It's crazy. I've seen kids, well, I wouldn't even call them kids, young adults that's like 20, 23, they buying houses and they got a good interest rate, good credit and all that stuff because their parents taught them what they're supposed to do, how to move. And it's like, I feel like in the black community, we got to start teaching our kids that, because that poverty mindset, you know, it is people scamming out there, and I everybody knows that it's people scamming out there, and we need to continue to call out them scammers and them frauds in the community. But every situation is not a fraud situation. It's KingBritneyChanel, you already know. Just make sure y'all continue to use righteous judgment. If you like videos like this, thumbs up the video, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that notification button, and I'll be back with more views on the news. And I will put the link to Pastor Gray talking about this whole situation, because honey, it's 23 minutes and I ain't had all that time like that. Mwah.